Make yourself comfortable here. So if you feel like you need a cushion or something under your head, just grab whatever you need. Want to try and let your chest and shoulders roll open. Let the back of your rib cage sink down heavy into the mat. See if you can get both shoulder blades anchored. Let your pelvis sink heavy into the mat, so back of the pelvis is anchored. And then just take some deep breaths there. So we've got feet flat, knees bent, just because that takes any pressure off your back. But if you feel more comfortable with your legs out long, feel free to be there. And then just bring in your awareness to your breath. So slow your breath down a little bit. Start to take really deep inhales and really long exhales, just getting rid of any stale air and allowing your body to soften. So notice anywhere that you are gripping and holding tension. And see if you can find any more softness in your body. Notice when you're breathing, where in your body is moving. Where is your breath going to? So is it all around your neck and shoulders? Do you find that your breath is quite quick and shallow? Is it around your rib cage? Can you feel that rib cage expanding side to side and front to back? Or are you more of a belly breather? Do you have that kind of big rise and fall of your belly as you breathe? Now in this position, belly breathing is fine because it's a very relaxed breath, but you don't want that to be your breathing mechanism of choice for every day. We really like to focus on getting your rib cage to move. So let's see if we can really focus the breath there. As you take a breath in, can you feel your rib cage expand side to side and front to back? Think of it like a 3D expansion of your rib cage. And we're just going to do a few breaths here. Now, the reason that we don't want to be doing this belly breath all of the time is that it puts an awful lot of pressure in your abdominal cavity. It puts a lot of pressure on your pelvic floor and on the front wall of your abdominals. So anybody that's had issues with that diastasis recti, where the two halves of the six-pack muscle have started to come apart, it's a pressure thing. So we want to really make sure that we aren't taking those really deep belly breaths all of the time. The other problem with taking the deep belly breath is you aren't able to engage your abdominals. And obviously for a lot of work that we do, walking around, reaching for things, bending over, we need to be able to engage our abdominals. Let's just take a couple more of these deep rib breaths. Noticing if your breathing can get that a little bit deeper, can you get that little bit more air in? And then we're going to go onto all fours. So coming up slowly, take your time, but come onto all fours. Just have your hands under your shoulders, your knees under your hips. And then I want you to just try and relax your belly here. So this is your abdominal release or diaphragm release. Can you just keep taking those deep breaths, but just allow your belly to be as soft and as relaxed as possible. So kind of getting us in this position makes it a little bit easier to let your belly go. And it's really hard to not pull your belly in, especially more so for women, because we're always sucking it in, aren't we? Pulling it in. And that's not doing us any great favors. So see in here, if you can just allow your belly to relax. Maybe let your head relax as well. So can you let the back of your neck lengthen, crown of the head reaching down towards the mat? And just take a couple more breaths here. And you release any more belly. Nobody's looking. All right, and then just come on off your hands for a minute. We're going to come back onto all fours in a minute, but let's just give our hands a little shake out. Maybe just twirling your wrists around. Give your fingers a wriggle. So being in that all fours position and really allowing your abdominals to release and to be as relaxed as possible kind of moves everything out of the way. Because when we're sucking it in, we're pulling everything in all of the time. So when everything is allowed to relax and go back to where it kind of should be, then your diaphragm has got more room to move there. So you can get those deeper breaths in, and it allows release and relaxation of all of the muscles rather than all of that tension all of the time. We're going to go back onto all fours again. We're going to do our cat-cow now. So fingers are going to spread wide, thumbs point towards each other, and elbow pits are forwards. Let's get our shoulders set up really nice. Okay, and then from here, take a breath in. As you exhale, I want you to tuck your bottom under. Can you get that rounded through your lower back, rounding through your middle back, your upper back, and your head is the last thing to move. Let your head just drop down between your arms. Take a breath. As you exhale, you're going to go the other way. Stick your bottom out this time. Rolling through your lower back, your middle back, your upper back. Imagine you're bringing your chest through your arms again. Head is the last thing to move. Let's do a few just with the pace of your breath. Remember, you're taking a breath in and you're moving on your exhale. Try and make the movement as smooth as you can. Thinking about letting it flow. Letting the movement ripple up your spine like a wave. Noticing which bits of your spine are moving freely, which bits feel like they just don't want to move at all today. So just being aware of what's happening in your body right now. Do a couple more of those. And then as you come back through center this time, we're going to go onto our back again. So let's come back down onto our back, knees bent, feet flat. So what we're doing today is we're just kind of putting everything together. There's some release work, there's some mobility work, there's some strength work, and we're just kind of putting it all into one workout so that you're getting a bit of everything. We're going to go for a spine twist next. So bring your feet and knees together. Take your arms out to the side, palms facing up towards the ceiling so that you can roll your chest and shoulders open. If you need something under your head, feel free. From here, take a breath, and as you exhale, let's let both knees roll to one side. We're going to inhale as your knees come through center, and exhale, take them over to the other side. Just again, move with the speed of your breath from one side to the other. See if you can keep your shoulder blades and the back of your rib cage anchored on the mat. So that the twist is a real twist and it's not a roll. Often if you go to twist and your whole body goes, it's a roll rather than a twist. So here, think about that movement through your waist. So rib cage is still and pelvis is twisting side to side. We need to have some mobility, flexibility through the waist for everything to function as well as it can. And it kind of feels nice, getting everything moving. As you come into center this time, we're going to bring the knees in towards the chest. Give your knees a little hug and let's just rock gently side to side. Give your lower back a little bit of a massage, add in a little bit of weight to give more release to any tension in that area. And the weight is just coming from your legs. We're going to have one hand on the top of each knee now, and then open your knees wide and circle them around. So we're doing like little knee circles. Think about your thigh bones circling in your hip socket. So we're giving the hips a little massage. And then we're just going to reverse that circle, go the other way. Good. All right, and then we're going to bring our feet back down onto the floor. So let's have feet and knees hip width apart. Pop your hands onto your low belly so that you can kind of feel what's happening here. We're going to go for that single knee fold. We've done this before. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, you're going to bring one knee into that tabletop position. As you inhale, you're going to lower that leg back down onto the floor. Exhale and lift the other leg this time. Inhale as you lower back to the floor. So you're lifting the leg as you exhale. You're lowering the leg as you inhale. We're trying to coordinate the movement with the breath because it's on an exhale that your abdominals will naturally and reflexively contract. Yeah, so abdominals pull in. See if you can feel that with your hands. So as you exhale and your knee comes up, can you feel your abdominals pulling in? Or are they bulging out? If they're bulging out and reaching up more towards the ceiling, then I want you to then consciously think about drawing your belly button down a little bit. So not a big thing. It's not a, so you can't breathe. It's just a very gentle drawing in. Often it helps to think about maybe your hip bones narrowing closer towards each other. I'm very careful of using the cue kind of navel to spine because I feel that that encourages people to suck it in, and that's not what we want to do. We want to find that reflexive movement. Good. All right, as your knee comes up to the ceiling this time, we're going to hold that leg there. Take another breath, and as you exhale, bring its friend up to join it. We've got both legs up towards the ceiling. We're going to go for toe taps this time, okay? As you inhale, tap one toe down onto the floor. Exhale as you pull that leg back to the ceiling. Keep going. Inhale as you lower. Exhale as you lift. Keeping a check on your abdominals, making sure you aren't bulging. You're trying to get those abdominals to sink down rather than bulge up. Also be aware of any bearing down or any pressure downwards onto your pelvic floor. And if you have the bulging that you can't pull down, or you're feeling that pressure down, then I want you to go back to the single knee fold where you're lifting one leg at a time. You've always got to be true to your own body and your own boundaries, and not try and go beyond there, because you're never going to build the strength to be there if you kind of just blow beyond your current boundaries. We're going to add some arms now. As your leg comes up to the ceiling this time, hold it there, and let's take both arms up towards the ceiling, palms facing towards each other. This time, as you inhale, you're going to tap your toe and reach your opposite arm overhead towards the floor behind you. Exhale, pull back to the ceiling. Let's go. Inhale, reach the arm and the leg away. Exhale, pull back up towards the ceiling. Keep going. Again, really being mindful of those abdominals. Using your breath to help you. Don't hold your breath. Really good. Let's do one more on each side. And then as your arm and leg come back in this time, give your knees a little hug again. Then let's just rock gently side to side. And just a little bit of a release, and giving your abdominals a little break, because that's a lot of load. That's a lot of work for your abdominals. And it's a great way to build some strength. We're going to let the feet come back down onto the floor now. Knees bent, feet flat. Okay, we're going to work our shoulders and upper body now. So arms down by your side. Let's do some floor angels. Palms facing up towards the ceiling. Keeping your hands on the floor, you're going to start to slide your arms out along the floor and up towards your head. Only let your arms come up as high as you can, keeping your rib cage and shoulder blades anchored, and then slowly lowering back down towards your hips. So you want the rest of your body super quiet, super relaxed, and we're mobilizing the shoulders. Good, keep going. As your arms come back down to your hips this time, let's just add that next little layer on. And we're going to think about really opening up the chest and the shoulders. So now I want you to turn your palms away from you so you can get your thumbs down on the floor. Little fingers are kind of pointing towards the ceiling. And let's have a soft elbow. Lift your elbow just off the floor. And we're going to do the same thing. So sliding your thumb along the floor, elbow just off, and coming up towards your head as high as you can without the ribs lifting, and then slowly coming back down. That's it, Donna. Thumb down. So your palms are kind of facing up towards your head, something that way. Sliding your arms out and back down. You can feel maybe a stretch through the front of your chest, through your shoulders, maybe through your upper arm. This time, find the point at which it's hardest to keep your ribs down and you feel the maximum stretch through your upper arm and shoulder. There'll kind of be a point that's usually around shoulder height, and then just moving your arms gently there, maybe an inch towards your head, a couple of inches towards your hip. So just making that movement smaller, hanging out at your boundary, and just do a few little movements there. Good. All right, and then bring your arms all the way back down. All the way down, all the way down. Good job. Okay, so we're going to do our log pullover next. So grab your cushion, your block, whatever you've got, and we're going to take that up towards the ceiling. So whatever you're holding, we want to have a little soft elbow. I want you to think about pulling the elbows towards each other. So like those elbows are really attracted to each other. Ribs are going to stay down, and we're going to take that cushion, that block, whatever you've got over your head towards the floor behind you, and then bring it back up to the ceiling. And we're going to use our breath again. So we're going to inhale as your arms go overhead, and we're going to exhale as we bring it back up towards the ceiling. And keep going here. Inhale as you take it overhead, and exhale as you bring it back up. Watch for those ribs wanting to lift, keeping those ribs anchored. And that's going to be really working the upper part of your abdominals here. Let's do 2 more of those. As your arms come up towards the ceiling this time, we're going to pause there. We're going to lengthen our legs out long now. Now let your legs kind of go where it's comfortable. So maybe they want to roll out a little bit to the sides. That's fine. See if you can find that neutral pelvis here. So notice if your pelvis is tipping back and your back is completely flat. See if you can find that point at which your hip bones and pubic bones are on the same plane. And we're going to do the same thing. We're going to inhale as you take your arms overhead. And we're going to exhale as we come back up towards the ceiling. Inhale, I'll go overhead. And exhale, back up towards the ceiling. Just keep going, nice and slow. So now we're really working the abdominals. So the upper part of the abdominals is really keeping those ribs down. And the lower part is helping to keep your pelvis in that neutral position to stop it from tucking. Elbows are still drawing in towards each other. And we're making sure that those abdominals are sinking down as you exhale and not bulging up towards the ceiling. 2 more. The last one here. Good job. And then you can just pop your block or your cushion, whatever you've got, down to the side. We're going to go back to knees bent, feet flat. Again, feet and knees are hip width apart. We're going to bring our arms down by our sides now for a spine curl. So if you've got anything under your head, just take that out for now. Okay, we want the palms facing down so that the backs of the arms are going to help to anchor you down into the floor. Take a breath here. As you exhale, we're going to tilt the pelvis towards you and then start to roll your hips up towards the ceiling. Super slow, peeling your spine up off the floor. Take a breath when you get to the top, and as you exhale, you're going to slowly, slowly roll yourself back down. So go again at your own pace. You're moving on your exhale, tilt the pelvis towards you and exhale as you roll up. Keep your eyes on the ceiling directly above you. Just keeps your neck in a really nice position. You don't really want to be turning your head when you're rolling up. Keep going here. Seeing if you can soften the movement. So can you make that movement flow? Like we did with the cat-cow, we're trying not to be kind of all blocky and rigid. We're trying to let that movement ripple up your spine. Using your breath. So we're really bringing your awareness to how your spine is moving. So I find it easier as I'm rolling down. So as you roll your spine down this time, notice whether each bit of your spine in turn is coming down into the mat. Or is there an area of your back that actually doesn't fully come down to touch the mat? Do it a couple more times and just notice. So sometimes kind of that lower back area can be really rigid and really stiff, and it can be really difficult to get enough mobility there to allow that to come down into the mat. So just notice. 2 more. Good job. And then as you come down this time, bring your knees to your chest again. Little knee hug, little rock side to side. Again, just releasing any tension that might be there. So we're going to go from that spine curl into a bridge now. So with a bridge, the hips just lift straight up towards the ceiling and your spine stays pretty still. So let's get back to feet and knees hip width apart. Now, the closer your heels are to your bottom, the more it's going to take, the more work it's going to be for your bottom and the back of your thighs. Further away it is, the more space you've got. So kind of play around with this a little bit. We're going to take a breath in, and as you exhale, I want you to press your feet straight down into the floor as you lift your hips up towards the ceiling. Take a breath at the top, and then exhale, you're just going to fold at the hip and lower your bottom straight back down onto the floor. Keep going with that breath in. Exhale, press the feet as you lift your hips to the ceiling. Breath at the top, and exhale, lower your bottom straight back down onto the mat. So do a few of those. See if you can find this work in your bottom and the back of your thigh. So glutes and hamstrings want to be doing this work for you rather than the fronts of your thighs. If you feel there's a lot of work in the front of your thighs and your knees aren't happy, think about where the weight is on your feet. Can you get the weight more into your heels than the front of your foot? And that should bring the work more to the back of your body. Couple more. Good job. Okay, now this time I just want you to lift halfway. Can you hold halfway here? We're going to see if we can lift one foot away from the floor. So can you maybe come up onto the toes of one foot first? Try and keep your pelvis super still. And then can you lift that foot away from the floor without your pelvis dropping? Place that foot back down onto the floor. We're going to do the same on the other side. So can you unweight the foot first? And then can you lift your foot away from the floor without your pelvis dropping? And place that foot back down. We're going to keep switching sides here. So again, just go at your own pace. Trying to keep that level pelvis. Make sure the ribs are staying down. Notice if your ribs are wanting to really press up towards the ceiling, try and keep them quiet. And again, keeping your weight through the heel of your foot more than the front of your foot to really get your glutes and hamstrings working here. Let's do one more on each side here. And then lower your bottom down. Good job. Grab your cushion, your block, again, whatever you were using before, and we're going to pop it between our knees this time for the knee squeeze. Okay, so making sure that our pelvis is neutral again, so hip bones, pubic bone on the same level. Take a breath in, and as you exhale, I want you to squeeze your knees together, and then inhale as you release. So keep going here. It's your chance to kind of have a little rest as you work your inner thighs. So this is really working the inner thighs. It's also working those deep low abdominals and, remember me saying to you last time, your pelvic floor as well. So this is a reflexive movement. Your pelvic floor and abdominals are contracting because your inner thighs are doing some work. You're not thinking about pulling your belly in. You're not thinking about anything to do with your pelvic floor. It's just happening naturally as it should do. So squeeze and release. Inner thigh muscles also tend to get a little bit lazy. They tend to not want to do an awful lot. So this is a great way of waking them up and getting them to do a little bit of work. Go and squeeze on your exhale, release on your inhale. All right, we're going to try this in a tabletop position. So can you bring your legs into that tabletop, still with your cushion or your block between your knees? Can you bring your knees close together so you're kind of a little squeeze, but bring your feet further apart. So feet are wider apart than knees. And again, we're going to squeeze and release here. On your exhale, squeeze the block. On your inhale, release. Trying to keep your feet wider than your knees. That's a tricky one. Keep squeezing on your exhale. Good. All right. And then we're going to take our legs straight up towards the ceiling now. So just get a hold of your block or your cushion for a minute. We're going to use it again in a second. But see if you can stack your legs so that your ankle, your knee, and your hip are all in one straight line. And if you find the right point, then your legs almost feel weightless, like it's not an effort to hold them there. If you're really tight through your hamstrings, you can do a little soft bend of the knee. And if you're struggling, you could pop your hand under your pelvis just to give your pelvis a little bit of a tilt to make it easier. But if you're happy, pop your block, your cushion, whatever you've got, kind of between your knees. And then we're going to roll the legs in towards each other. So your big toes are going to come close together. And then you're going to roll the legs out so your heels come closer together. Now, having something between your knees just gives you a little bit of something to focus on. It gives you that little bit of external feedback. And if you're using a block like me, it kind of comes towards you and then further away from you. So this is called the Pez. Do you remember those Pez sweetie dispensers where you had like the little head, like a little Donald Duck head, and the head popped up and the sweet popped out? That's kind of what this movement is named after. I didn't name it, but it makes sense to me. So we're turning the legs in and out, working those deep hip rotators here, and also adding some weight onto that hip. So it's good to load our joints as we move them. Good job. 2 more turning in and turning out. And then when you've finished, bend the knees in, get rid of your block, your cushion, give your knees a little hug, and let's just rock gently side to side here. So you don't have to do really big movements to really work your hips and the muscles of your abdominals. It doesn't have to be these really big grand movements. Sometimes the smaller, deeper movements will give you much better results. Let your feet come down onto the floor now. Bring the soles of your feet together and let your knees roll out to the side into your cobbler stretch here. Allow yourself to relax and take some deep breaths. This is a great position for releasing tension through the inner thighs, also through the pelvic floor, allowing your abdominals to relax, but at the same time, you're working on the mobility of your hips. Taking a few breaths, kind of allowing your body to absorb the sensations, the feelings, what it's just been doing with the hips, and just allowing it to settle down. Okay, we're going to roll over onto our front next. So when you're ready, come onto your front. And you can have your hands one on top of the other with your forehead resting down on your hands so that you're as relaxed as possible. And we're going to be doing some hip extensions. So you can have your legs squeezing together or hip width apart, whichever feels better for you. Try and anchor your pubic bone down onto the mat. And then think about slightly tucking your tailbone, which will just bring your pelvis into a neutral position. Feels a little bit weird when we're this way, but it's just to get you into a neutral position. Okay, reach one leg away from you. Make that leg as long as you can and allow it to lift away from the floor and then lower it back down. Same on the other side. Reach the leg long, allow it to lift and lower down. Keep switching sides. You're thinking more about length of the leg rather than how high you can lift it. We want glutes and hamstrings to do the work here. So can you make your lower back as relaxed as possible? Can you find more softness there? Really reach those legs. Notice if your pelvis is tipping side to side. Can you try and keep your pelvis super still? So the only thing that's moving is the leg. We're going to add a little bit onto this now. If this is enough for you, then absolutely stay here. We're going to try the next kind of level up. We're going to bend one knee and then have your foot flat. So the sole of your foot's pointing up towards the ceiling. Keeping your pubic bone anchored, tailbone slightly tucked. Can you press the sole of your foot towards the ceiling? Again, it's not going to be a huge lift, but can you press towards the ceiling? Can you lift your knee just off the floor as you lift? Again, think about glutes and hamstrings. All right, and then lengthen that leg out long. Keep it off the floor. Can you point and flex your foot there a couple of times? Pointing and flexing your foot a couple of times. Leg is just off the floor. And then lower that leg all the way down. We're going to do the same on the other side. If it doesn't work for you, go back to your normal hip extension. Otherwise, bend the knee. Flex the foot so that the foot points towards the ceiling. Try and keep your pubic bone anchored as you lift and lower that leg. It might be a tiny bit. It doesn't matter. If you're finding that you can't do it without twisting your pelvis or working your lower back, even getting your body ready to lift it, kind of imagine that you're just about to lift it, we'll get those muscles firing and we'll get it starting to prepare itself to be able to do that. All right, and then straighten your leg out long and point and flex your foot there. Keeping the leg hovering just off the floor, point and flex. Good. All right, and then lowering your leg down. Push yourself up and back into your child's pose, into your rest position a moment, just to give your back a little stretch. Because although we try really hard not to create any tension in the lower back, it's really difficult, especially when you're lying on your front. We are going to go back onto our front now. We're going to work the shoulders a little bit this time. So come back down onto your front. We're going to have arms down by our sides. You can have your head hovering off the mat, or you can have your forehead down. Okay, palms facing in towards the sides of your trousers, pubic bone anchored, tailbone tucked. We're going to reach both arms behind us and then lower them back down. I want you to notice whether as you reach your arms behind, do they go wider apart? Can you try and keep them in the same position as you lift and lower? They tend to go wider just because of tension through your shoulders. So see if you can keep them where they should be. All right, as you lower your arms down this time, we're going to keep the arms down. So arms are going to stay where they are. Can you squeeze your shoulder blades together in your back here? So you're going to be picking up the fronts of your shoulders away from the floor and then relax them back down. Again, can you squeeze your shoulder blades together in your back and lower them down? Let's just do a few of those. All right, and then we're going to lift the hands and we're going to interlace our hands behind our back and rest your hands down on your bottom. Squeezing those shoulder blades together again. Can you lift your hands off your bottom and then lower them back down? So I was going to say towards the ceiling, but my hands are going nowhere near towards the ceiling. So you're just lifting the arms and lowering them down. Keep squeezing those shoulder blades together as you lift. 2 more. Last one. And release your hands. Push yourself up and back again. Find that rest position. Reaching your arms as far forwards as you can. So really walk those fingers forwards, giving yourself a stretch through your shoulders, your upper back. Take a couple of breaths here. All right, when you're ready, come back down onto your front again. We're going to do a release here now for your inner thighs. So we're going to do that prone inner thigh stretch. So again, you can have your hands on the mat, head resting on your hands, and you're going to bend one knee out to the side. So one knee is going to come out to the side. Now notice as you brought that knee out to the side, have you hitched that hip up higher? So have you kind of shortened one side of your waist? And you try and have your pelvis still level, so hip bones are still in a line, if you like, rather than diagonal. So straight across your mat. And then just hang out here. How about the hip bone of the leg that you've bent out to the side? Has that had to lift high away from the floor? Can you not try and pull it down, but try and take some deep breath and relax it back down? So trying to find more space to allow that hip bone to come back down. So taking some deep breaths here. Do a little scan through your body and notice if you're holding tension anywhere. Then you soften your face. Can you relax your jaw? Can you relax your shoulders away from your ears? Notice if you're pressing your rib cage into the floor. You kind of pull your ribs back into your body a little bit, just so that you're not creating that shear of your lower back. How about your abdominals? Are you pushing your belly into the mat? Are you sucking your belly in? Can you let your belly just be as relaxed as it can here? How about your legs? Are you gripping through your legs? Can you find more softness? Can you allow them to just sink down deeply into the floor? Notice if you're clenching your toes. Are you kind of screwing up and creating tightness in your feet? So that leg that's bent out to the side, we're going to straighten it out now. So can you just straighten that leg? And again, notice, has that changed? So has your hip bone again lifted away from the floor? Maybe it's come down closer to the floor here. Just notice. So here with this leg straight, your leg is in that internal rotation. You might feel quite a big stretch through your inner thigh. When the knee's bent, it's in external rotation. So it's a slightly different stretch, even though you kind of feel like, oh, my leg's bent and then it's straight. It's the same thing. It's actually a completely different release. And they're both really good. Keep taking those deep breaths. Notice if you've had to hitch that hip up. Often you'll do that to kind of get away from the stretch, get away from the tension. So can you think about trying to keep your hip bones level, trying to keep length through both sides of your waist. And just doing a quick scan through your body. Check the areas that you know that you hold tension. See if there's any grip in there. Often it feels like you're lifting yourself away from the mat, almost like lifting yourself off the mat with tension in the muscles. So I always say, if you can, on an exhale, think about just softening and melting down into the mat. That helps to just release and get rid of tightness and tension. We're going to come out of this now. So just bending that knee to bring that leg back in. We're going to do the same on the other side. So just bend your other knee out to the side. Again, once the knee's there, you're checking whether you've hitched your hip up. So have you got one hip bone higher than the other? Are you shorter on one side of your waist than the other? Can you fix that? Has that hip bone lifted away from the mat? Have you had to almost roll onto your side to get into position here? Can you find more space to allow that hip to come back down? And it's just tension through the hips that create that. And we can create big changes in our body. We just have to be aware of what's happening with it and what we need to change. You can't change something until you know what it is. So that's why we're always scanning. We're looking through tension. Doing your little scan again. So checking jaw, neck and shoulders, ribs. Checking what's happening with your abdominals. Muscles of the legs. Check your glutes. Are you clenching your glutes? They can be relaxed here too. Hands, feet, everything. Let's straighten that leg out now. So that same leg that's bent is just going to straighten out. Just feel how that stretch changes for you. Where's that hip bone at now? Making sure that you haven't hitched that hip up higher and noticing whether it's lifted away from the floor. Again, you're not trying to muscle it down. You're not just trying to force it and pull it down. We're trying to find release. This is a release movement to restore range of movement back. We don't want to be trying to force our body to do anything that it's not ready to do. We could stay there all day, but we'll not. Bend your knee, bring that leg back in. Go back to your first side, and you're just going to bend that leg. You're going to bend the knee to bring the foot up towards the ceiling. We're going to do a quad stretch here. Can you reach your same side hand back to grab your ankle here? And if you can't, then you can use your strap if you've got a strap nearby. So we've just bent the knee, pulled the foot towards your bottom, and then you're holding onto it. If you can't quite reach, grab your strap, loop your strap around your foot and hold that. So this is a quad stretch, so stretching out the muscles on the front of your thigh. But while you're here, notice again, have you had to lift your hip bones off the floor? Have you had to kind of flex at the hip so that your bottom is kind of lifted away from the floor, or kind of pointing it towards the ceiling? Can you find more space through the front of your hip to allow your hip bones to come back down into the mat? And again, we're not forcing it, we're not muscling it, we're noticing, oh, I've had to lift away from the floor to get here. So then we're thinking about creating space through the front of the hip by maybe think about sending your knee down towards the bottom of your mat to give more space. And if it feels okay for you, maybe roll your thigh in and out a little bit. So keep hold of it, but just roll that leg gently side to side. Because sometimes when you're in a release or a kind of a stretch, if you like, and then you add a little bit of movement, your body will respond better. It doesn't feel like it's under threat quite so much, so it will release. If it doesn't feel nice to you to move, you can hold it still. It's all about what your body wants. So, like with any other release, any other stretch, it depends how much tension you hold in your body, how much tightness you have, as to how long you need to hold it for. But you could spend as long as you like doing any of these releases. But let's move on to the other side, lowering that leg down. Can you bend your other leg this time? Again, bringing your foot closer towards your bottom. Reach your hand back, see if you can grab your ankle, preferably. If you can only grab your foot, that's fine for now. Use your strap if you need to. And hold there. Taking a few breaths, allowing your body to sink deeply into the floor. Is it the same on this side? Have you had to lift your hip bones? Have you had to flex and bend at the hip to get your leg here? There's lots of other sneaky little cheats, but we'll just think about that one today. And then again, maybe does it feel nice to roll your thigh in and out a little bit? You can keep it still if you'd rather. Good job. All right, releasing that leg. Grab your strap and roll over onto your back. We're going to do the strap stretch next. So pop in the strap around the base of your toes, kind of the ball of your foot. And then have your other leg out long on the floor. We're going to press through both heels and pull the front of the foot towards you off both feet. We're trying to find a neutral pelvis here, so check your hip bones and pubic bone. See if you can get the back of this free leg to touch the floor somewhere at some point. You've got a big bottom, you might need to move your bottom out of the way and adjust yourself a little bit, she says, talking about herself. So just try and get the back of that thigh down. pelvis neutral. So this is really anchoring your hamstring there, because the hamstrings fasten onto your sit bones. So we need the sit bones anchored and in a neutral position. And then we've also got them anchored at the foot because everything's connected. This is going to give us a true release of tension through the back of the leg. Whereas if you allow your pelvis to tilt, you've not got an end point, you've not got an anchor point, and you're just going to be pulling into your lower back. So it's quite important that we get those points there. Not that it would do you any harm, you just wouldn't be stretching what you think you're stretching. Keep pulling the front of the foot towards you. Let that leg be super heavy in the strap and as straight as possible. So again, if you've got a lot of tension there, your body will want to put slack in the line and it will want to bend the knee to get away from the stretch, the release. If it feels okay, bring your leg across your body. And you can feel how it changes that release now more to your outer thigh and hip, maybe. Still pulling the front of the foot towards you, pressing your heel away. Let's bring that leg back in through center. Let's turn out slightly from the hip and take your leg out to the side. This is more inner thigh now. And again, try and keep your pelvis still so that we've anchored it again at the foot and at the pelvis. So if you allow your pelvis to tip, again, you've got no anchor point to the stretch. Check your ribs. Check your jaw. Let's bring that leg back in through center. Let's switch and pop the strap onto the other leg. So again, at the base of your toes, ball of your foot. Lengthen your other leg out long. We're going to push out through both heels, pull the front of the foot towards you on both feet. Get that leg as straight as you can. Check in, make sure you've got your neutral pelvis. Can you get the back of your thigh down? All the bits. Once you're there, you can chill out, relax, take some deep breaths. If it feels okay, bring your leg across. If it doesn't feel nice for whatever reasons today, you can always keep it in center. So here it's just a leg that's come across. So you haven't lifted your pelvis, you haven't rolled to your side. We've just brought the leg across because we're wanting to stretch that outer hip and thigh. These strap stretches feel so good. You don't realize how much tension you kind of hold in your legs sometimes until you slow down and just take a moment to notice. Bring your leg back in through center, slightly turn out from your hip and take the leg out to the side. Again, pelvis stays super still. Both hip bones pointing straight up to the ceiling. Take a few breaths there. Good. When you're ready, bring that leg back up towards the ceiling and you can bend it in and get rid of your strap. We're going to come up to a seated position now. So take your time and come on up. So I want you to be comfortable here. We're going to sit for a little while. So if you need to grab a cushion to sit on, a block, a bolster, anything that you've got handy, grab that. And then just find a comfortable position for you. So whenever you're doing any seated work on the floor, you want to try and have your pelvis as neutral as possible. And that means that you're sitting on your sit bones, not sitting on your tailbone. So we're trying to get that position. And again, if you were to check, your hip bones and pubic bone would be on the same level and you wouldn't have one forwards of the other. It's always a good way to kind of just check where you're at. So sometimes just giving yourself a little bit of height will help you to find that. Okay, and then we're going to do some shoulder and upper body stuff now. So I want you to reach one arm out in front and imagine that you're holding a glass of water there. you're going to tip the water out. So we're in that external rotation. And we're going to take that arm out to the side. So don't let your body move, just the arm's going to go. Soft elbow, so we've got a slight bend in the elbow. And we're still tipping that water out. So we've got as much external rotation as we can have here. And we're going to hold that. Can you think about pulling your elbow away from your shoulder? So we're thinking about pulling the elbow away rather than the hand, because otherwise you'll just tend to kind of lock out your arm. So soft elbow, reaching the elbow away, opening out your chest and shoulders. We're going to add a head tilt. So tilt your head the opposite way to your arm here. Keep reaching that elbow. Keep tipping your water out behind you as you reach. And take some deep breaths. All right, bring your head back up through center and just gently release that arm. Just give your shoulders a little circle around. Just turn your head slightly. Just letting go of any tension that might have created. We're going to do the same on the other side. So arm reaches out in front, grab your cup of water, tip it out, externally rotate that arm and take it out to the side. Keeping your soft elbow, keep tipping your water out. And again, you're reaching the elbow away from the shoulder. So you're creating traction. Keep tipping, keep reaching. And again, let's tilt the head the opposite way. See how it feels. Maybe it feels your neck, maybe your chest, shoulder, upper arm, maybe everything. And just hold here, taking those deep breaths. Keep checking that you're not starting to arch your back and ribs lift. Keep those ribs in. And take some deep breaths here. Really good. All right, head comes back up, arm comes back in, and again, just kind of a little wriggle, a little release of tension. We're going to do both arms together this time. So reaching both arms out, tip out your water, externally rotate both arms and take them out to the side. Keep that soft elbow, reach away, and we're going to drop chin to chest this time. So bring your chin as close to your chest as you can, looking down towards the floor. Keep tipping your water out, keep reaching your elbows away. Couple of breaths. And then slowly bring your head back up and release your arms. Give your shoulders a little circle again. In each direction. Okay, take one arm and take it behind your back. Try and get your upper arm as close to your body as you can. So notice if you've got a big space and your elbows out to the side, how close can you get that arm in towards you? And that might start already to feel like a big stretch through the front of the shoulders and the chest. So just hold in there. If you're happy and that feels okay for you, you're going to start to sneak that lower arm up your back. So instead of it being kind of straight across the back, try and lift it up your back. So your lower arm is coming up your spine. Notice again, has that elbow tried to poke out to the side, trying to keep your upper arm as close to your body and as vertical as you can here. Again, just changing that stretch, adding another little layer of stretch there. Take some deep breaths. Try and be as soft and as relaxed as you can. Again, you don't want to be holding and lifting and creating a lot of tension. We want everything to be as relaxed as possible. One last little bit to add on to this. Can you flip your hand the other way? So your palm was facing out. Can you flip your palm so that it faces in towards your spine? That might just be a little bit more than you want this morning, but just try it. See how it feels. If it's not right for you, flip your hand back the other way. Oh, it really gets into all the nooks and crannies there, doesn't it? Okay, release that arm super, super slowly. Bring that arm out and just do a little rolling in and out of that arm just to release your shoulder. Let's do the other side. So take your arm behind your back. Again, we're looking for that vertical arm as close to your body as you can. Notice as you've taken that arm back, have you lifted your ribs and arched your back to get that arm back there? Often tension in the shoulders, you'll move the rest of your body to get it where it needs to be. So just notice that. Again, if you're happy, try moving that lower arm up your spine. It's always just gradually adding on layers until you find the point at which it's like this, I can't do any more than this right now. This is kind of my border, my boundary of maximum stretchiness today. And then hanging out there. Couple more breaths. Should we try the flippy hand thing on this side? Can you flip your palm over? It really gets in there. Just hold again for a couple of breaths. Good job. All right, release. Super slow. Again, turning your arm in and out. Let's just do some shoulder rolls. Let's just do a couple of shoulder rolls in one direction. Go the other way. And then gently turning your head from side to side. You are done.